Hello, everyone. Your favorite comm major, Jim, is here. And I just wanted to talk to you about Anchor.fm. It is super easy to set up a podcast and get it out to all those amazing podcast platforms your friends use. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading you this ad. And I'm also a member. So honestly, it's super easy, even for the comm majors. You know, we did not do enough work in college, but it's super easy to upload your episode, get it out there to all those services. So if you want to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start, and you can, check it out right there. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Hello and welcome to Comm Majors. I'm Brian Costello.
I'm Jim DeSanto.
And I'm Katie, the May Queen.
And we have...
Special
Tim
guest. Parker. That's right, Tim
Parker. We talk right over him.
Tim is used to getting spoken over by Keenan. I mean, he comes on our program so he can actually speak without being spoken
he
over.
has trained Keenan very well at this point.
It's been a long, long road to getting Keenan to where he is today. So if you listen to our podcast now, just imagine what it was like 7 years ago when he wasn't well trained.
He's now married. He's going back to school. He's
Tim's like Peter Pan.
Tim got him on the right track.
It's impressive.
Keenan has kind of turned into a live version of the movie Hook. Like what happens when Peter Pan grows up.
He was 16 for 15 years.
That's true. That is a pretty good way to describe it.
He leveled up.
Yeah.
And it's all because of Tim. I have a disclaimer to make. I met with Human Resources before the episode tonight, and I am under strict directions to not talk about Tim's voice during the entirety of this episode.
I am not the Human Resources Department. I think that might be our dog.
Scout said, just don't mention it.
I think my voice will disappoint you tonight anyway, because I really haven't talked. I talked to my wife for 15 minutes today, and then she went to work. So I've talked to no one. So my voice isn't even really warmed up.
It's ready to go.
Yep. So
we're thrilled to have Tim here because of our first Amazon August selection, which is MIDSOMMAR, a movie that was not a huge box office hit, but Tim was one of those people who saw it in the theater. I had wanted to, but I didn't, and championed this movie. And we actually ended up talking about it briefly on a Pop Addled episode Jim and I were on. And we've been looking for an opportunity to discuss it and have it on the show. And luckily, it is for, I don't know what the agreement is, but it is one of Amazon's major properties. They have it in the director's cut version of it, the 4K version. I mean, it's everything. So there's some kind of connection. So it fit perfectly as Jim's selection for Amazon August. But first, before we get started with MIDSOMMAR, let's all share what we're drinking this episode. What does everybody have?
I have Four Roses, small batch select. Fantastic bourbon.
For the past few episodes, Jim's been making me a new cocktail, and we've been naming it thematically. So last night I asked him for a midsummer beverage. He crafted something delicious out of ginger, whiskey, and lemon, and an unknown red food coloring that he told me is all natural.
Oh,
it's for vitality.
For vitality. Cheers.
It's like exactly the color of it.
I know it is.
And the glass, the Omegang glass that we got at the brewery is like the perfect glass.
It's refreshing but earthy.
Yeah, I mean Belgium is sort of relatively close to Sweden, right?
There's like a metallic
closer than we are
to it.
Copperish, sanguine.
Yes, sanguine's a good word.
A little tang. Tangy.
I am a positive drinker of this beverage.
Yeah.
little birthy aftertaste.
Oh,
right.
that went too far.
We have to work on like the line, habitual
Over
line.
the
stepper.
line,
Oh,
Smokey.
come on. What is that? Is from
Over the
Office,
line.
of course. That is not an original line. Tim, what do you have?
I got a little Evil Genius #adulting. It's a guava IPA, and Evil Genius is in Philly. It's on Front Street. It's like right in Fishtown.
It's a fun place to go once you can go places
names.
again.
Oh, remember
true.
places. They have great names. I love a brewery that names their beer well.
Yeah,
They do a great job.
Katie one time at her birthday got very
I had too many I Love Lamp.
I love lamp, which is I
don't
think a
love lamp
pineapple
anymore.
wheat beer from Evil Genius.
Ooh,
No more lamp for me.
no. Things that
Santa, I Know Him is also a really good beer of theirs.
They have Stacy's mom.
Yeah.
All their names are great.
I almost had that one tonight, so we would have been in the same. Yes, I'm drinking Black Hog IPA.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Which is a Connecticut beer from Black Hog Brewing Company.
All right.
All right. Time for fact check. Tim, how have you been since we last saw you? You were last with us for North by Northwest. Since then, Jim and I have teamed up with Keenan and Tim on their Pop Addle podcast to discuss Batman.
89.
But you are Batman 89, but you are out in the wild of
Exton, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, where you work as a bartender. So you are on the front line of dealing with stupidity, probably on a semi-daily basis. How are you doing with
Do
that?
the people of Exton believe in science?
I'd say majority no.
Oh.
Westchester, where I live, yes.
Can you be a virtual bartender?
Like I pretty much am, because like all of the stools are just up on the bar because the bar is closed. So I'm essentially almost in a cage, like in a
that's
prison.
good. I like that.
And I just stand back there and sling the drinks, and I don't really come in contact with any of the customers. So from that standpoint, I'm fine. The work itself is okay. But breaking news as of like today, both Kat, who works at Kuma in Westchester, had a server test positive for COVID. Kat is my wife. And a server at Appetites tested positive for COVID. So world's kind of been turned upside down over here today.
Yeah.
So in the midst of like rewatching this movie, our group text we have for work was like every 30 minutes there was like 50 new text messages because people are just freaking the hell out. I almost dropped an F-bomb without the mute button. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your consideration, Timmy.
Yes.
No problem.
Already established yourselves above these two.
You should evil for some bleach, right? Isn't that what you have to do? Drink some bleach. That will get rid of corona. You'll be fine.
Oh, right. Duh.
Now
I forgot. I mean, I have bleach. I should get right on that. Thank you, bro.
you could inject it. Isn't that
mix it
supposed
into
to
the
do something like that?
cocktails.
Oh
Just
God,
put it
you
right,
guys.
UV rays. Just go out in the sun will kill it. I mean, these are all great suggestions that I've seen on the internet or
So-
presidential press conferences.
I'm not showing any symptoms. Like I have been taking my temperature from time to time, like even pre-learning this news, and I've never had a fever. I don't have a fever today. I'm not feeling any sort of symptoms. I still feel obligated to get a test just because I came in such close contact with this. So that's where I'm at, you know.
All right.
All right. Well, there.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, he's there.
Tim Parker. Is that his name?
Yes.
Last name? Okay.
We got it right. We got a name right. That's better
I
than
am
usual.
1 for 1 so far, friends.
Katie is
Only
like
gonna get worse.
Katie's like Jason and June wrapped into one. The like wild card of Jason and the complete indifference of June makes for a very interesting.
She also has very emotional moments, though, where like she really enjoys a movie for no
Yes,
reason.
yeah.
And I relate to that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Tim, we did Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade last week. Any quick thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
I've rewatched all 3 of those movies in quarantine: Raiders, Temple, Last Crusade. Last Crusade, it's still fantastic. I've yet to listen to the episode. I feel like it did just come out as of like this recording. Like I think it came out today or yesterday. But I did catch up on. I did listen to your Hamilton episode, and I listened to A Few Good Men. Fantastic, especially your Hamilton episode. That like trumped our episode tenfold. Yours was so much better. But yeah, like Last Crusade's great. I had fond memories as a kid, and on rewatch, it still holds up. Especially, it's interesting to rewatch a movie like Batman '89, where I had such fond memories as a kid, and that does not hold up. It really doesn't.
Nope.
No. And
right. And we watched them back to back. Like, I watched Batman and then Indiana Jones, and I was like, oh my God, the action in Indiana Jones is so much more interesting and well thought out and has an impact on the plot to a certain extent. Like, yeah, Batman is the more I thought about it, I'm just like, that's a bad movie.
I agree.
Dressed up in like yeah, it's a terrible script and it's a terrible like plot. The characters are almost non-existent.
And I mean, by the time
film we will not be doing soon.
Yeah.
By the time you're hearing this, that 2 episodes ago with my buddy Castle, we did top 5 iconic cars and movies, and both Keenan and I had specifically the Batman '89 Batmobile on our list, and like that is one positive of that movie. But even in thinking about it from that sense, I'm like, yeah, the rest of it just sucks. Yeah. It's not good.
No, we didn't come away loving that movie. At all.
In better news, I just listened to the Last Crusade episode, and I'm going to put it down as a top 5 episode for Comm Majors.
Oh, really?
I think it was surprisingly good.
Oh, interesting.
Surprisingly good.
I blacked out. I
actually enjoyed listening to it.
That's like a Rona Jaffe book cover.
It was better than all the previous
than most of our episodes.
Good.
Better than anything else they've done.
That is like when the
unless you're like holding an Oscar and someone says that about you, it's like it's a backhanded compliment. Like
that is like when the Scranton newspaper called our show mildly amusing.
Mildly amusing.
Mildly amusing. And I loved it. I took that as a huge compliment back then, and I still do to this day.
Still on his resume.
Still on my resume.
On the resume.
Katie apparently has, and we got to get into the movie, a box she wants to open. Again, as Katie likes,
I'm ready.
As Katie likes to do, this is a non-visual medium. We are a podcast, but we are going to unbox something.
Our movie tonight is set in Sweden. This package came from Bulgaria.
Yeah.
That's close, right?
No, I don't think so.
Not really.
I knew DHL only comes.
Are they both in Europe?
When it's DHL, it's always international.
DHL, international shipping.
Are we supposed to know what's is?
Yeah.
There's something in this package that serves a purpose.
It's more exciting when you don't know.
Oh wait, so we're literally just opening a package.
Oh man.
Is it a snowsuit?
All right, I have to take this off.
No, you're gonna love this.
What in
this
God's
is worth
name?
it. This is actually worth it now that I know what it is.
Oh, is it one of the white linen outfits? I'm kidding.
You got to figure it out.
To give you an idea here. Okay, so Katie is putting some kind of hooded.
It's her Sister Night cosplay.
You had a Sister Night.
Oh, Watchmen.
All right,
yes.
Whoa! So you got a Sister Night cosplay face shield
for COVID.
For COVID teaching.
Yeah, and she's gonna get a yellow actually the black
bandana or something.
You kind of look like Rey from the new Star Wars movies, like when she in the
had that bad dream.
When she when she thought she was
good unboxing, Katie.
All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
Or nobody who's listening to it as a pod had any idea what's going on.
Did you describe it for them?
Yeah, it was lovely.
No, you didn't. You didn't say what it was.
No, we absolutely said what it was.
You're the
All right,
worst.
time for the rundown.
You are the worst.
Play the music. Play the music.
You are the worst, bird.
I'm Heidi Klum with your rundown. She's Swedish, right?
I don't know.
I think so.
Couldn't tell you.
Maybe German. After losing her family in a horrific manner, Dani falls into a well of grief. Her only lifeline is her wishy-washy boyfriend, Christian. Christian reluctantly invites Dani to accompany him and his PhD friends to study a midsummer festival in his friend Pele's commune in Sweden. Dani agrees and enters a world that feels like a mushroom trip back to sex rituals, runic writing, and human sacrifice. When the visitors begin to disappear, will Danny run away or join in on the fun? I think I got every character name right.
Yeah.
No internet was used in the research for this rundown.
Wow.
Spot on.
I enjoyed this movie.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Right.
I paid attention to this movie.
That I think we could say right off the bat is Katie was the only one of us to not see it, and we know that everyone else loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies where there were moments in the middle where I was like, "Ooh, this could go wrong. This could go wrong," and then by the end, I was like, "Nope, they did it. They pulled it all together. It all works."
This movie is, I would say, and I think we can all talk about this, almost like a hidden gem in some way. And it only came out in 2019. So it's weird. But it was not a film that necessarily got a lot of play in the media. I mean, I think maybe it was an interesting choice when it came out because you went and saw it, Tim. It was a summer release, right?
It was exactly as the title says. It was a midsummer release. It was like early July. The only reason I knew about it was because Ari Aster was the director, and I had like kind of recently seen Hereditary at that point. So I was like, oh, this is Ari Aster's next project. I got to go see it in theater because of how much I enjoyed Hereditary. And yeah, like it got no hype. It got no love at the 2019 or 20. I forget how they differentiate the years or whatever, but the most recent Oscars, it got no love, no nominations, none. I'm like, not even for set design, costuming, script, nothing. I'm like, I don't understand that at all. But yeah, no hype for this movie. And it's just so bizarre, fascinating, horrific, like devastating. There's just so many emotions packed into this movie. I think initially coming out of the theater, my reaction was, all right, well, what the hell was this about? Like, just don't be a shitty boyfriend or else you're going to be stuffed into a bear and burnt alive, you know? But then like the more I watched it, because I rewatched it with Kat, and then I rewatched it for this, and I rewatched it on my own, even like at another point, like the more and more and more I picked up on like just what's going on and psychologically and stuff. And it's just so fascinating and in depth. There's so many layers upon layers upon layers.
Yeah, I think for us, we immediately said, you know, we started discussing it right away, Katie and I, and in a way that we typically don't discuss a lot of movies. And the fact that we're talking about it as if it's a piece of art immediately puts it in like the top 1% of horror movies for me. And I don't know that it's necessarily a horror movie. I think it is, but I think it does a few things to like kind of uproot the way you would feel about other horror movies and kind of how it plays with the audience in a way that like makes you feel it doesn't make you like Jordan Peele. Like it has a very Get Out vibe where you don't walk away feeling, at least I didn't feel horrific walking away from this movie or like horrified at certain things, you know?
Well, so it's interesting because it doesn't use any of the common ploys of the horror genre, right? And so it doesn't rely on surprise or necessarily on really gruesome visuals. There was only one time I had to close my eyes, but then they showed that visual later, and I was fine. I was okay with the smashed in face.
We could chat about that.
We can chat about that. Yeah. So to me, it didn't use the cheap tricks of many horror movies, and that horror of the reality of the community happens earlier. So they show a lot of the cards early, which I think is part of what makes this movie beautiful, because it's not using that ploy, right? Even the trailer, you kind of know, right? Like you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, you know, going into it that going to this thing is a bad idea.
Absolutely,
right?
Right? They're not hiding.
That's the horror, like the part of this that is standard horror movie. It's like you know it's a horror movie, and you know these people are going to some event or something. That's bad.
Oh, you know the people are going to die.
Yeah,
you know the people are going to die. You're just waiting for how and when do they die. And the horror over like what the community is definitely happens. I think we react with the characters.
Let's talk about it.
But I think what Jim was talking about is the way that it wraps up at the end feels very different than the way you generally feel at the end of a horror movie.
I will say, though, that like going into the theater, I didn't even see the trailer for it. I just, based on Ari Aster, I was going to see this movie. And even in the beginning, when Pele is describing his quote unquote family, I truly believed it was a normal family. And then once they arrive at the commune, I'm like, oh, fuck, it's a cult. That's when it hit me. This is going to get sideways quick.
But they even use that word commune early on. So I just felt like, right, like they kind of tell you, I mean, it opening with Danny's family dying the way that they do, like you are immediately primed for like, this is not going anywhere good, right? Like nothing good.
And then the way that the credits drop in, I'm just like, oh shit, that was the cold open to this movie is her losing her parents and sister credits.
Yes.
I was like, holy shit.
Then her relationship with her boyfriend, that conversation before she finds out that her family has died, I said to Jim, is this the horror of the movie? Because it might be the most disturbing part of the uncomfortable movie. Like it makes your skin crawl. You just want to like shake her and be like, be better, be stronger. So like you get the heebie-jeebies in a completely unexpected way, right? Like you've already seen the dead bodies of her family and you feel creepier watching her talk to her boyfriend, right?
Yeah, and that creepiness between them stays through the whole movie. Like pretty much every time they have an interaction, there's like this, and those two specifically, Florence Pew and I don't know who Christian is, Rayner, I think it's Jack Rayner.
Jack Rayner.
Yeah,
they are so perfect for those roles because there's something about Florence Pew that like made me immediately go like, oh, she's like the quintessential like college girl, and he's like that same guy, right? Like
it's like what they say about Reese Witherspoon playing like the basic white.
Yeah, Reese Witherspoon played the shit out of a white lady.
Yeah. She plays the suburban white liberal so well. Florence Pugh does college girl really well.
Yeah, and this guy did the college guy perfectly. And neither of them are like I think all of us probably know people when they were that age that were exactly like that.
Yeah.
And we're in relationships that were exactly like that.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating.
God. When it drops, when you're at the commune and it drops that they've been together for 3. But you're talking about the things. You're saying the things, then you don't want me to talk about the things.
Right.
When you find out that they've been together for 3.5 or 4 years, he doesn't know. Oh my God. Again, I'm like, oh, this is the horror. This is it. And then I have a moment of like, those people totally get married. Right? These people go forward and get married.
Absolutely. And then they get divorced.
Absolutely.
And then they get divorced. And all their college friends are like,
or they have kids and then they get divorced.
And then they get divorced.
Yeah.
This movie is a Disney princess movie. And Ari Aster even said that. He goes, it is in one essence. And if you think about it, it's a folk horror movie. It's playing out on two planes. The guys are in a folk horror movie, right? They go to the scary cult and they all die and it's going to end that. But Ari Aster was saying is like, Danny's kind of a Disney princess. She has the horrible thing happen at the beginning. And as she goes through it, at the end, she gets her quote unquote, and we could discuss the ending later, her happy ending. But it's the play on that and the way he subverts all of those things throughout, which I think makes this a film that ultimately will be kind of the equivalent of what The Shining was, which is a wildly underappreciated film upon its release. But in like 20, 30 years, people are going to be like, and here's the re-release of the 10K version. Keenan will have his 10K TV, buying the 10K version or whatever it's going to be of this. But it works on so many levels that we're going to be able to talk about that you almost sit there and I'm like, man, why couldn't I have seen this in the theater? Well, I feel like it was we missed out on it. And that's kind of a bummer, but I'm also happy, thanks to Tim, that we got on the bandwagon as quickly as we did, because I think it is in 5 years something that many more people who really like and love film are going to be talking about this movie.
Well, I don't know if you should be thanking me, because this is a disturbing film at the same time. So it's like, you're welcome, question mark?
Well,
I have to argue, though. I mean, I think this speaks to what you were talking about. Yeah. You don't end up at the end feeling disturbed. I think at the end, you're like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It happened.
Yeah. She had him sewed into a bear.
And I understand
lit on fire.
Yeah. I understand that decision.
I agree with that choice.
I think that's part of the horror, is it? As you start to realize that you're okay with what happened, and then you kind of, I say the horror of this movie, I told Katie last night, it sort of exists in like all these small bad decisions, or like the inability to make decisions, and the inability to like to speak truthfully. Right. Like that's sort of the horrors that like compound this movie, because they get to this commune cult. And there's they have some disturbing customs. Right. So the first one they're introduced to is that, when you become, so they view life in seasons. So in 16-year intervals, was that what it was? So the first season would be, what would they say?
So wait, no, because they're in that.
Was spring.
That first place they lived till they're
30-year intervals.
It was like 18. Until you're 18 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, 36. Yeah, so 18 is spring, 36 is summer, fall, autumn, and then when you're 72, you're dead.
Which is really also interesting, because all of these people then are technically midsummer.
Right. Yes. And so what this group of folks witness is a pair of 72-year-olds in a ritualistic ceremony throwing themselves off a cliff to commit suicide.
To end their season,
to end their winter
final
season.
Yeah.
To basically what the head of the cult, or the commune, says is to face death with dignity and whatever. But I
think her name is Siv,
right?
So when you look at like which characters react in which way, and who ends up staying for it, right? Because you immediately have two characters who are like, oh hell no, right? Like, I don't care what the rest of this crowd is doing, that they are all silent. Like, I'm going to tell that guy not to jump. I am going to tell them like this is bullshit. Like, right? These two folks are like, no. And when you look at who they are, right? Yeah, I don't care. Like, they are presented as like very confident, very self-assured people, very secure in their relationship, very loving and empathic to each other. And so you have these two very strong personalities who are like, this is not okay. And then when you look at the folks that came from Danny's neck of the world, they've all got their flaw going on.
Josh, who is the graduate student who's there to study the MIDSOMMAR event and write his dissertation about it, or his thesis. It's the same thing. I don't know.
It's the same.
I'm not an academic.
Well, you can have a thesis before a dissertation.
Anyway,
yes,
he knows what it is going into it. I don't think he knew that it would be exactly what it was. He might have thought that they would drink poison or do something relatively tame. They literally throw themselves off like a 3-story drop and smash their face in a rock.
Except the
second guy does not die on impact.
Come on, dude. By the way, that guy, how many
Why would you jump
feet
first?
Why would you jump feet? Have you seen? You're jumping
72
feet first.
of these. Did you watch her go
jumped
first? You go
you.
face down.
I don't know if you guys know how this works, but
Lord.
That angered me.
I don't know if you and Brian know how this works, but when people listen to that, it's going to sound horrifying. Because they're not going to understand what either of you said.
That's all right. You got to watch the movie. You'll understand it.
So he doesn't die on impact. At that point, he starts moaning. His leg is basically severed and
mangled,
turned backwards. It's disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
And he starts moaning, and then all the villagers start kind of mirroring his moaning, which is the first time we see this, which repeats itself throughout the movie, which is like, it seems like their version of being empathetic is sort of trying to induce the same emotion in themselves by repeating the audible noises that the other person's making.
So that's interesting. You could interpret it that way. I think it's also a sign of like respect and power that you take a feeling, you take a sound, and you amplify it, right? You make it bigger into the world,
right,
and that plays a part later.
Yes,
I interpreted it as almost like this connectivity amongst all of them. Like they're not just a family; they are actually like, I don't know, telepathically or whatever connected. So they experience each other's pain. You know?
Yeah. Well, and they are actually all related, right?
Right.
They also believe that they are of the earth.
To Tim's point, that would be an empath, like, right, like so. So they start doing that, and then they just give this one guy a look. He has this gigantic hammer.
Listen, clearly this has happened before.
That is basically like a petrified tree, and he walks up and just smashes this man in the face with a hammer.
Think like they would learn
a hammer the size of a tree stump directly to the face.
Did you guys see Alita Battle Angel?
Is that
no? But I want to. Is that happening?
Not just like the.
They have the weapon.
He's a doctor and he's an infamous actor, and I'm forgetting his name, but he has this giant fucking hammer that has like a rocket on the end of it, so it makes it go even faster. That's what I envisioned when I saw that hammer. I was like, holy crap, I know where that's going.
Yeah, but it's interesting in the sense that I feel like that sequence is one of the only gory sequences in what would be a horror movie. And I wonder, is that what turned off some people? Like, Tim, when you saw the movie in the theater, in the sense that I feel like there a lot of pushback against this movie was expectations that people of the horror genre had. And that maybe there was more gore or there was more jump scares. What was it? Did you see it in a theater with other people? What was around you? Or was it not even very full? I'm wondering like what the interpretation of it was, because I feel like it is maybe a different viewing experience. And maybe that's part of the problem The Shining had. When you look at the review, the expectation was there'd be more scares. The scares in this movie are not traditional horror scares.
So I mean that conversation I think absolutely is connected to Hereditary. Like Hereditary, I think people view as a more traditional horror flick, and I think I don't even think it's that they have the tropes and the beats that Katie's talking about, like, because they're very similar as far as those things go, but in the settings in Hereditary, like a lot of it takes place in a house, so you feel more claustrophobic. And then there are a few other cheap scares that just, I don't know, make it feel more like a horror movie. And in this, it's like a stark contrast when you have this big, open, vast, beautiful space in bright daylight, the opposite of claustrophobia. And those beats are like, just, you know, you see this person jumping off a cliff and it is horrific, but then like the next scene is, you know, Josh and what's his name, Christian, talking about like their thesis and like stuff like that. It's just like I think it's those stark contrasts that make people feel like they're not watching a horror film. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think we're trained, right? In essence, we're almost trained to accept what our relationship with a certain type of movie is going to be. And the idea that this doesn't tie into those maybe made it uncomfortable. And people don't like that. And I think that maybe ties into the movie in essence, right? Like the idea that we're taking Christian, right? A Christian, and taking him to a pagan setting, and the other characters, right, are modeled after more enlightened people who would be in opposition to what a pagan lifestyle would be. And seeing that the juxtaposition of that is that people are uncomfortable, and maybe we're feeling what they're feeling in that sense. And I thought they did that with Danny as well. I feel there were little ways with Danny that Ari Aster was able to make us feel more like her. Like we were experiencing what she was doing, whether it be the scene where they take mushrooms before they go in. So you're as disoriented as she is when she wakes up from that, because that sequence. And he's, I think, brilliantly attaching you to her. And then at the same time, you have this other thing where now we're going to have these other characters who, the enlightened guy who's doing his thesis, or the jerk schmucky friend who is supposed to be like what a modern hipster, cool guy would be. And it's the opposite of these people who are very loving. It is a cult, maybe, if you want to call it that, but the love within that community,
it's real,
is real. And the dysfunction, interestingly, the more dysfunctional characters are not the cult characters. If you think about when we saw, for example, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when they go to the ranch, right? Those are super dysfunctional. They're like so weird, so creepy, a different type. I would argue a more traditional version of what a horror film would be in that segment when Brad Pitt turns up there. That is not what he's giving us there. And I think there's a layered approach here that makes it so intriguing for that reason.
Absolutely. Well, there's big time social commentary there, right? And again, that's where I think you go beyond just a standard horror film, where it becomes more satirical, where you're thinking about, what folks do in the name of preservation, in the name of love, in the name of tradition, right? And how when you grow up within those traditions, there is an inability to see things in any other way, right? Where like the only folks that go out have a very specific purpose in why they go out and what they bring back. Right. Everything is to serve this like common goal. And I think, in a dystopian story, you take a nugget of truth. You take something that is true of real world humans, and then you like just play with it a little bit, right? This isn't so crazy. In fact, most of these ideas are based on, historical fact about what happened in societies a long time ago, and in some form kind of still happen now.
I have so many comments to make on this movie. I have so many things to go to, but I mean, this scene is probably, I think, the most iconic scene of the movie. And to specifically answer your question, Brian, like seeing this in theater, as they're even walking up to the ledge, I'm still in disbelief. I'm like, they're not going to jump, right? And I think also the way it was shot was disgusting. Like it was as if you were there watching someone take their own life, and it was chilling.
Everything in that scene is built to make the gore of that scene gross.
Yes,
because the washed outness of the cliff and everything the way he filmed that, everything was like pointing towards you being grossed out by what you saw. And I think that's intentional, because I think he needs to draw, like, he needs to have that in juxtaposition to the villagers and how they're not grossed out by it. And that is the normal life. And
when who else in the moment didn't really, who was calm was Danny.
Yeah.
Danny's staring at it and she's calm as can be. I feel like she's almost seeing her parents in them or something.
Right. Well, she did. Literally, there's that moment where she has the thought of her sister sitting against the rock and the two old people laying next to them.
But then as they left there, that's when she starts having like a panic attack and has to walk away, and she practically can't even breathe, because I think it finally like sets in of what she just witnessed. Right. Yeah. Whereas fucking Josh and Christian are like unaffected. And even when Christian goes to check on Danny, she looks at him like, "Are you affected by this at all?" And he's like,
"Heavy day,
dude. That was weird, man.
Weird.
You want a burger?
Yeah.
You guys want to get a beer and a burger?
I want to go get an ale."
And that's, I think, when the wheels really start clicking with Danny, where she's like, who is this guy? Like, he just watched people take their own lives, and he's completely unfazed by this.
Yep.
He has at that moment, he has like, and I think we've all, and I think this is something that a lot of males experience. At some point in your life, you do feel like you can sort of put it in neutral and just kind of like experience things and not take responsibility for them, or not take or just kind of pretend that like you're not involved, you're just kind of an observer. And that's sort of how he's approaching his like relationship with Danny at that point. And that's why, you know, he's a shithead. But I think a lot of us grow out of that phase.
We hope.
Yeah.
Can I dial it back just a minute?
Yeah.
So just one more moment on that scene. You talked about the juxtaposition of the kind of feeling of that scene, the way that the villagers feel versus the newcomers, the visitors. But also speaking to the visual of that scene and the way that the juxtaposition works in the color. It's so striking. And so, yes, the whitewashedness of the scenery, you have all of the people dressed in their white or, you know, kind of like washed out blues. It is a beautiful scene. And again, when you compare that to what you'd expect of a horror movie, right? When you think about those horrendous death scenes, they are often in a basement, in a garage, in a dark wood, right? Like, so this just turns everything on its head. Can you picture the most gorgeous, you know, cliff in Sweden, a fjord even, and then people dressed like angels, you know? Like, I mean, it's just this, it's gorgeous. And then the blood and the horror, like, you're right. But your word was great. It is such a juxtaposition.
But it's interesting that they're willingly doing it, which is so different than your usual horror movie. And that's the death we see. And if you think of it until the end, we don't see any of the deaths of the characters that we would always see the deaths of. And he made it a willing choice. I'm not, by and large, going to show a lot of how these other people are killed. You know, and
Mark
it's
just walks off.
And,
you know?
And he's a scarecrow or something. Well, I mean, and what's so interesting about this movie is I feel like you could do 10 podcasts on this movie because of different things. I mean, we just spent like 10 minutes talking about the cliff scene. And for some people, that might not be even the one that stands out to them the most. There's a few things I think we have to get to
Chicken
because
Man.
of the reference. I think we have to get to, because of Katie's drink, this whole idea
so the
of
folk
sub
the folk magic of so a lot of the things witchery in this movie revolve around like old folk tales and you know what you would call an old wives' tale and things like that, but even taking it to like like the grim fairy tales, but like the real versions when like stuff which is really all terrifying
based on real beliefs, right?
Who wants to take this one around the
take it around the horn,
the love rune?
Well, that was interesting. If Katie, because obviously the three of us had seen this, did you understand the whole love rune? Did you pick up right away that whole story was played out on that visual, on the painting that we were going to see?
I think that the story is masterfully told in that, like, if you're paying attention, everything is there. Right. Yeah. And so, so there's a slow pan over
a piece of artwork.
Somebody says a love story. One of the characters.
He's like, what's that? And he's like, it's a kind of a love story.
Yeah.
It's like the Princess Bride.
Right. And so you basically see that a woman is cutting her hair down there and using some red to flavor the thing that
the cocktail,
the apple of her eye.
Yes, that person will consume, and then love ensues, right?
And why this is so important is because they need to bring in outside DNA to the party because they are such an insular group
society
that the incest would lead to issues,
which they also harness,
right? Which leads to Reuben, which is still the only part of this movie that I don't think quite hits.
Yeah, I don't get that. That might be a whole separate episode.
So is it just to see?
Is.
So I think there's some pieces of it that are just to kind of enforce the layers of grotesqueness, right? Like so that there's something there of like that they're intentionally creating a deformed creature because they believe.
He's a prop.
Yes.
He's a prop.
He is. And you know what? There is a historical element of it that things that we know today as genetic disorders or things like that, if you went back to pagan time periods, things that we would diagnose today for certain reasons, they would be oracles or something like that. So I think some element of that might tie into it. But it's very left. To me, it is a very underexplored aspect of what's going on.
Right. There are a few parts of the story that are kind of like that.
But and so like what you find out is that this individual, Reuben, who is a deformed person, very similar to like the guy Sloth from Goonies.
Yep.
Worse.
Just not
worse.
More
not as big.
Functional than him. Yeah.
And the idea is that he paints in this book and the elders interpret it as like almost as holy writings and what they should be, how they should be living their lives, which really is just a prop for the elders to control the rest of the people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if there's any much more to talk about him.
I don't think there is. It's just an interesting side caveat.
There might be. Like, so furthermore, this is like my big overall question to you guys is like, there had to be some premeditation to get this whole gang there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, cause that guy like Ingvar or whatever. Yeah. Who also goes out on like, whatever they call it, an expedition.
Rumspringer.
No,
it's not Rumspringer.
It's similar
That's
to it.
Dutch.
No.
He's the one who brings back Connie and Simon.
Simon, yeah.
Like they're basically recruiting blood to come like inseminate the colony.
Which, let's be serious, they weren't going to let Connie and Simon inseminate anybody. But that's another conversation.
Well, no, but I got that. I thought, can I just say this quickly? I thought of what Tim's going to here. But if you do the math, right? And I didn't, upon first viewing, I didn't think of this, right? They need
Connie.
No, but they need 9 people.
Someone.
Yeah. But they need 9 people, right?
Yes.
So if you think, do the math in your head. So the 2 that the other guy brought, right? Then 2 of the ones that of the friends, they're going to need 1 male to impregnate a female. And then you get that scene I thought about this time when Danny comes and he looks at her and realizes that, she could maybe be a May Queen.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, but that was pretty heavy. I got that right away on the first viewing. Because the moment where Pele is like, I am most glad that you are.
No, but the other, but we were just.
Yeah.
No, but we're talking about the other numbers. That's what they're. So
no, I understand.
They need the rest of the numbers.
Yeah.
But on the first,
they were never going to let those folks taint the blood.
But that's why those.
But
Danny's
extra. Danny's extra. She was right. They weren't planning on her. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, so and this is my okay. So like, what if like these characters that Pele brought were not colossal pieces of shit? What if he brought just normal American, or maybe normal Americans are colossal pieces of shit, but like, what if he just brought like normal friends with a guy that didn't piss on an ancestral tree, a guy who didn't try to steal their fucking ancient book?
Would they have let them live there? Yeah, maybe.
That's a great question.
It's like a leveling where they're like, we don't really like these folks that live here, so we're going to trade.
Well, I wonder if they get to that ceremony at the end of the burning. So what happens is, what we're really talking about is that at the end, it's not the end, but end of their ceremony. It's not the end of Midsummer, but it's the end of the movie. They basically have to sacrifice 9 human souls, for the good of the world or the colony, whatever we call it. And so the 2 people who jumped off the cliff count as 2. Danny, Josh, Mark, and Christian count as, that's 5. The 2 English people are 6 and 7. And then
2 volunteers.
2 volunteers from the community. What I wonder is if they weren't put in a position to kill Josh, the British folks, and Mark, would it be more of like a situation where the May Queen would have to pick more, or would it be they'd have to have other people volunteer?
Yeah.
Well,
I think those are good questions.
Danny gets a choice at the end, right? She chooses to kill
Here's my
Christian.
bigger question. This is the piece where I felt like they should have fleshed this out a little bit more. So MIDSOMMAR happens every year. Parts of this ceremony, they specify, happen every 90 years.
90 years.
Now, if we do the math, that means none of them have ever lived through it because they only live 72 years.
Right.
But that could be true. I mean, we don't. I mean,
but they don't clarify what is the part of this that's annual. And what is the part of this that's once a century?
I think she said
the killing was once.
I don't think
that's
so.
My take on. You don't think so?
No, I think the only evidence that I think we can go on is that I think Civ says at one point our feast happens every 90 years. MIDSOMMAR happens every year.
But then that doesn't make sense. Why would just the feast be every 90? Like that just seems like
maybe it's a special. I don't know, but I think I have a hard time believing that a tradition like that survives even twice.
I agree, and I thought it was a strange detail because
it's like in those 90 years, someone's like, "Yay!" It's
maybe not. Maybe not.
But if you're doing it every year, that's how it gets ingrained.
But it also makes it feel stronger for the audience, right? Like if this is an annual tradition, like WTF?
Yeah, that line.
If we do this once every century.
I would say that line should have been redone.
They didn't need it.
But if we take it as a fairy tale, which if you think of the very first thing we see is the wood clapboards, kind of like the old Cinderella and Snow White of a Disney movie, then fairy tales are weird like that. But
you just don't need that. You just don't need that piece. Like just trim that out and it's a better story.
Brian, like specifically to Ruben, you guys already said how he or whatever Ruben is a prop. Like, was the whole Tex bullshit to get Josh there to I
don't think so.
Kill him.
I think that's a little too much.
No,
I think that's a little
that's
too
as far as my crazy brain has gone.
No.
With this movie,
I thought to me that was an interesting take on to go down a deep road here about like the idea of like, whose texts are we reading? Like this is the thing we're using, and Jim's right. Like the elders are using this as their tool to manipulate people. I think you could read that in a lot of ways. But I was surprised with the
why does all those points why does that guy need to teach the little kids how to put someone in a bear? Because they're never going to fucking live long enough to put the next person in the bear.
This is the problem. This is why this is a plot hole, right?
And it's not though. I don't know if it's
never seen it before.
Time out. It's certainly not a plot hole because we're not. It's not like there's a problem. We're just not sure what the answer is.
I guess so, but
a plot hole is like a
problem.
device. No, not really.
Well, I don't know. I bet we
it can affect your enjoyment of the movie. I'm not saying that's not legit, but it's not a plot hole for the movie.
Without the human killings, they could still practice the ritual and
I guess
kill a bear and dissect it.
I assumed that that first piece, like the 72-year-olds sacrificing themselves, that's an annual tradition. And here's where my dystopian literature brain went off, and Jim was like, I'm bored with this. But when you look at the number of the folks that you see in this community, especially when they do the long shots of the table, which is mostly the older folks, the kids aren't really in that shot, it makes sense that there's kind of two folks of each age. And part of that ritual might be trimming the fat so that by the time you get to 72, there's only one male and one female who are 72.
There might be. Remember, Pele's parents die in a fire.
Which, again, would suggest that the ritual of the 9 is not every 90 years.
Or maybe it's not. Maybe every 90 years they're not bringing outsiders. Maybe there's
that has to be every year, though, if they're having babies that are not all born of incest.
And they can't, and
they have to be bringing outsiders every year.
And what happens if they go on a run of all males or all females for 5 years? Then there's a problem.
No,
but
fair.
They kill the babies.
Can we talk about
Tim,
Florence Pugh in this?
Hold on.
There's a woman.
Tim, there's a woman walking behind you. I hope it's
that
Kat.
Danny's sister?
I didn't catch it.
She's making a lot of noise over there too.
Oh, we can't hear her. It was terrifying that
she's not
you know this woman?
temperature, does she?
Tim,
no, she's perfectly healthy.
Can you please take her temperature if she's going to be near our show?
Tim, blink 3 times if you need help.
If she hands you a pie, do not eat it.
Do not eat it. So let's talk about Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
Because
we love her.
Love Florence Pugh. We loved her in Little Women, of course, which she got an Oscar nomination for. Mm-hmm. To me, I will stand by this. I think it was the best performance by an actress last year. Hands down.
I agree.
This movie?
Thought she was incredible.
Or Little Women?
This movie.
This movie.
You like this better than Little Women? Because I know you love Little Women.
Her performance in MIDSOMMAR.
Her performance in this movie,
yeah,
to me was the best, one of the best performances I've probably seen by an actress in 5 or 6 years.
No,
but
I agree.
It was easily the best performance I saw last year.
Because there
that
is so
smile
much
alone at the end is like
there's so much done just with her face.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's so much going on with her face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like let's go back to the beginning. Like you were already saying, Katie, about that conversation that she's having on the phone with her stupid boyfriend. It's just a close-up shot of her talking on the phone, and there's just so much being done with simply her face that you immediately know this guy's a douchebag.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, after she learns that he's going to fucking Sweden without her knowledge.
Oh my God.
2 weeks in 2 weeks.
Her apologizing to him in that scene. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you didn't tell me that you were going to Sweden for a month. I'm sorry.
It was and that
the cringing.
But that like we can start moving towards the end here, because I think that piece starts to turn the moment they're sitting at that table and she says, I could see you doing that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And that moment is when you as a viewer, I don't know, I started to feel way more comfortable with all the awful shit that was happening to everybody else. And I was way more interested in like, how is Danny going to come out of this?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only person you care about.
Yeah.
But also that early on when she's having those conversations with Christian, I thought about you guys talking about A Few Good Men, because of Sorkin's scripts are renowned for their quick tightness, quippiness, and like they're good. This script is also, and this dialogue is also very, very good, but it's almost the polar opposite of what Sorkin does.
Right.
Because it was like disjointed and awkward and just cringeworthy. And you're just feeling all of this pain and emotion for Danny because of how awful Christian is.
Yeah. It's almost like those early, like those awful Michael Scott moments from The Office, but all the comedy stripped away from it.
There.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're just like, oh my God. Like Katie had the blanket up in front of her face at one point because she couldn't even
in the conversation with with the boyfriend. And I couldn't.
The one thing, the one moment I was like, oh my God, she's like killing it, is when she first gets on the phone with him. And she's freaking out because she thinks her sister is going to kill herself, which we find out she does moments later. So that's another like piece of this, is that she kind of knows she's already worried about this happening. It's not like she gets out of the blue.
There's a history of
right. There's a history of it. She's always worried, and it sort of like confirms all her fears about the situation that she had. He answers the phone, and she's like, "Hey, babe," and then he talks, and then she's about to sob, crying, and she like does this thing with her face where she grabs her nose and like just fucking eats all that emotion and tries not to cry, and he doesn't like either he hears it and doesn't care, or he doesn't realize or he's just not paying attention enough to even realize that she's not in a good place. And
in that moment, you don't know who she's calling, right? Mm-hmm. So she's just dialing somebody on her phone. And so my brain went to first. So if she thinks there's a problem with her family, my brain goes first to like, is this a neighbor, friend, brother? I got to like, it's her brother, because those first few moments between the two of them are not, they don't identify that this is her love interest, right?
Right.
And so that I interpreted as like, she's trying to hold it together because she needs somebody to go check on her family. Mm. And she can't lose her shit yet. And then when you realize that is her boyfriend, and then later when you realize they've been together for 4 years, Like there's just all of these layers that fall apart and make you devastated for her.
And then in retrospect, you also skip forward months to, to May.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it's May when they're at the party and all that.
But it would be the end of a term, right?
Right,
and it's springtime.
Right, they're getting ready. Well, we know that they're going to be there in mid-June.
Oh man.
So, yeah. So they're still together. Whether it could be as long as not 6 months, but I guess as long as 6 months, depending on when. And
that piece too, where the friends are kind of saying to him, "You've got to end this. You've been talking about ending this," and that in that moment. So there's this, you as the viewer feel horrible because you're like, they should totally not be together, right? Like he should just break up with her because he realizes he doesn't love her. And then he answers the phone and you realize like, oh, there's no breaking up with this girl now, right? You can't break up with this girl now. And then you feel horrible as the viewer because you're like, you should have broken up with her before her family died.
Me, like, to round out, this movie is what the art of cinema is. And we brought it up earlier. Like, there are movies that we love, and we've done a string of movies here that are enjoyable, fun, great, amazing. This movie is cinema as a form of art. And you don't see it frequently, I don't think, but it's the idea of what a movie can do when you have amazing visuals. Like, stills, you can just take stills of this movie and they could be like you're walking through a gallery,
right?
And you don't get it much, but you also, what cinema is if you watch like a Kubrick, and I actually thought of like 2001, but there's also like the influence, I think, a little bit of Eyes Wide Shut in some of this, but also like a Terrence Malick movie, or you see these people, it is unique to what a movie can be, that you become absorbed in this world with. I thought The Shining, the music was very different, but it absorbed, it was almost paired with the cinematography and the lighting, which was lighter. And it just takes you to a whole different place. And I know Tim likes this movie too. It's A24. They do these movies. Mm-hmm. It's like Robert Eggers. If you see The Witch or you see The Lighthouse, you don't know how you necessarily feel at the end, but you have dealt with something that there's no other form or medium that could provide it with you. It's like listening to an album that's just an amazing album, or going to an art gallery. This movie to me is one for this decade that people are going to go look at and say, this is uniquely cinema.
Yeah.
Brian, like, I do think it has permeated pop culture already, because I think because it didn't get any love and it just was so outrageous with especially the visuals. Like, I see it on Twitter all the time. Like, I mean, Katie's wearing a headdress right now, I see that memed a ton. But I hear what you're saying, that I feel like 5 to 10 years from now, people are going to look at
Twitter's all degenerates.
Yeah, we are.
No, it's going to be more word of mouth, right? It wasn't a box office hit, but folks recognize this is a great movie. And part of that problem might be the genre crossing, right? Where oftentimes folks who go to the theater, right, they're looking at the trailer and deciding what kind of a movie is this. And there are surprises in this movie. They are not what you expect of a horror movie, right?
Yeah. There are only a few movies I can think of over the past, the ones that come to mind that sort of hit these notes of it's artwork, it's a genre film, it does really great characters, really great writing. So things like that I put on this level would be like Ex Machina is for me is in this vein.
A24 film.
And The Matrix, the first Matrix film.
The original,
the original Matrix film. And there's probably a couple others, but what? Go ahead.
I just really want to talk.
The hours.
I'm thinking about the ending of this movie, and I just need a minute.
Let's skip to the end.
Okay, you have the end, so you're ending with the
end, right? So all of the shitty things that this guy has done for 4 years, right? We see at the dinner that Danny recognizes something is wrong with Christian. She is watching him. We keep getting her eye line, watching him, that he's like waving in and out, right? Like
they drugged him. He's been drugged.
Yes, he looks drugged, right? Like this is very clear.
But in comparison to like, Danny's high, he looks like he's in pain.
Yes.
Where she's just like tripping balls.
Totally.
And, loving life a little bit.
Totally.
Go ahead.
But I love how it flips the script because we've seen him treat her horribly. And now in this scene, we get sympathetic to him. I mean, he shouldn't have drank the tea, but we're like, he's not in control of himself. So he goes into this space.
Well, hold on. Before that happens, she tries to rescue him.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She says, "Can Christian come with me?"
Yes.
And they're like, "Nope."
Which indicates to us that she recognizes that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So he goes into the sex den, right? And like the flower princess who has given him her pubes is waiting for him. And it's super uncomfortable. It's like the weirdest sex scene you've ever seen.
You didn't mention the weirdest part about it.
The like middle-aged
There's like
lady.
14, 15 other women standing around naked.
And they are not your Heidi Klums. They are real women. They are of all ages. There's a lot of belly.
Which I appreciate.
Absolutely. Right? These are real villagers. But they are echoing. So here we get the echo in a totally different way. They are echoing the noises of the baby making. We won't call it love making.
His
baby
reaction to
happening.
some of that.
Like he keeps looking up and being like, what the heck is going on?
Right
and there's one on the back. There's a woman just pushing his butt. Right.
Yep,
I mean, like it is the weirdest scene outside of Eyes Wide Shut. Then at the end of this, when Danny walks in, this is when she decides, oh, I've had enough. When he has been drugged and forced into a relationship.
He still wasn't forced, though.
This is when she decided. No, but I just thought that was interesting. That like
some choices.
I guess so.
I mean, he was under the influence, but no one like forced him to go there and be in that room.
I know.
I thought after his conversation with Civ, he just kind of already accepted
like,
this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the pain he was suffering was like, damn it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cheat on
the
Danny.
person.
Fuck.
I guess so.
Oh, it's so hard.
So, but then why drug him? Right. So like from a from a storyteller's perspective.
I thought it was for him to like, you might have some performance anxiety when you go into a room and there's 14
interesting.
Naked women grabbing your ass and making you have sex with somebody.
Well, they drug him prior to the dinner.
Yes.
And then they give him something for vitality prior to the sex.
But you're seeing
which Katie
him...
said, that's for the wiener.
I did say that. You're seeing him have a crisis of conscience. Like I think that his reaction to that drink is supposed to make you feel like he knows this is not going to a good place.
But him taking the drink was a decision. Was the decision.
You're right.
Was when he knew what it was for.
Yeah.
Like he knew that when he drank that, it was.
You're right. It
was to get him high.
I have some, and they him in bear.
You're cutting out. Bear. Say it again. Say it again.
I said, I have no sympathy for him. When they put him in that bear, I'm like, see ya.
All right.
It's been real.
I just thought that it was interesting, like how those last few plays are made. But Jim asked at the very end, the big question. So what happens to Danny? And I think that smile tells us she stays and she becomes that damn red priestess. What was her name?
Civ.
I think she is like all in. She is not leaving that place. She is going to be the May.
She got her
flower queen, pole leader.
Is there.
Go back to what Pele asked, where he's like, "When you're with Christian, do you feel held?"
Yep.
And I think part of this whole process, there's many processes that Danny went through, and this is one of them where through staying there, she realized these people are legit family. Like I actually feel at home here. And I agree that I don't know if she's going to become, Civ, but I feel like she's going to stay.
Well, I think that there's a genius to, a lot of the ideas in this movie are not new, obviously. Like, again, they play on very old story. But the thing that's new is imagining, right, that these societies still exist And what kind of a person in modern day society would end up there and say, I can get behind this.
Tom
and
Cruise.
It's not the kind of folks that you would think, right? Like, it's not this like, fringe person who's like way into dark arts. No. It's just a girl who's had some serious trauma.
It's someone looking for community.
Somebody looking for community.
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same way that crazy, incels get marginalized and do
you're
stupid
absolutely
shit.
right. Again, it's like there's such satire in this film.
Yeah,
because it's speaking to truth.
And go ahead, Tim.
After Danny sees Christian banging Maya, and she runs back to the bunk or whatever, the dorm, and they all like have that cry together. Like, you absolutely feel that so much with her that you're like, this was a long time coming. And it wasn't even like, it was not only Christian just banged someone else. It was Christian is an awful boyfriend. I've been ignoring this for how long? My parents are dead. My sister's dead. Almost like a, what the fuck am I doing here kind of cry that you just like, you feel that with her. And even at the very end, when the whole community's freaking out as the place is going up in flames, and she's once again having this like ridiculous emotional cry. You just kind of feel that catharsis with her again. You're just like, yes, I'm so happy.
And the pairing to the beginning of the film, right? So at the beginning of the film, we hear that same cry when she finds out that her family has died, right? In a horrible way. And you see the scene of her. We haven't even gotten into the artwork of her apartment, dear Lord. So she is on the couch in a fetal position in Christian's lap, and he could not look more disinterested.
Couldn't care.
Obviously, what's going through his brain is, I should have broken up with her 2 days ago.
Yeah.
If I had broken up with her 2 days ago, if I had broken up with her earlier today, I wouldn't be this person who has to go through this thing with her, right? There's like this, like, she's the albatross around his neck. And so then to pair that with the end when she grieves again and is surrounded by a group of women who grieve with her, that's incredible. Jim just knocked something over.
That's all right.
All right. Are we ready to wrap this up?
Yes.
Well, hold on. There's
well?
one last thing here at the end. And I said the one thing that Katie and I were talking about is, like the horror of walking away from that movie feeling good about what just happened. I think that, that's like where this movie sort of differs from the traditional horror movie in the same way that Get Out, like when you look at the horror of Get Out, the gore and everything in Get Out only happens to the bad people. It never, there's nothing. Yeah. So like, and I love that about this movie. So, and
one last thing, this movie, it's very heavy, it's not in necessarily lackadaisical, sit down and watch MIDSOMMAR for, an eighth time. Like, it does take like a certain mindset to watch this movie, but I will suggest that on rewatch, there is so much to pick up on. Like, for example, when you see the shot of Danny's parents in their bed and she's leaving the voicemail on their message box, there's a picture of Danny on the nightstand and she's covered in flowers like she's the fucking May Queen. There's all sorts of imagery in the background in this movie that I picked up on this watch. Like, there's just so much to pick up on. Like, for instance, even a line, the way that when Josh and Christian are having their argument, when Christian first lets on that he's going to do his thesis on this place and pretty much like, steal from fucking Josh, which was so shitty. But Josh describes like the way Christian is going about his thesis. He describes it exactly like Christian's treating his relationship with Danny. He says, do not treat this like a glorified hobby you dip your toe in. And I was like, wow, that's like Josh didn't even realize that he did it, but he's making the same exact comparison to Christian in his relationship. That's like, I guess what like Christian has done throughout his entire life.
No, I mean, when we finished last night, Tim, I like within minutes, first of all, it was like 12:30 at night. We should have been well asleep. We stayed up talking about the movie until past 1. And immediately I said, we have to rewatch that. Because you can tell, just like good literature, there's more to discover, right? Like there's more there that we have to go back and reevaluate. Yeah, it's so good. All right, I'm ready to change the topic.
Of course, it is streaming because this is Amazon August.
And when you watch it, think
Amazon.
about the next time you watch it, think about The Wizard of Oz when you're watching.
Oh, God, we didn't even get to that.
Another
Damn
one.
it.
Different episode. All right, time for Game of the Week.
One of these buttons.
You want answers?
Nope.
No.
There we go.
Here we go. Here we
The
go.
third time's the charm.
Should I fix this camera? I guess.
What? Oh, it's you.
It's just
I'm confused.
Okay, Game of the Week
It's
time.
fine.
We're playing.
We don't need it. We don't need it.
We don't need it. We could. We're playing one of our favorite games. Just pitch it. Each of us are going to pitch a horror film. A really scary, horrific horror film.
Can I go first? Because I feel the least confident in my pitch.
Go ahead. Yeah.
First, I hate horror movies, so
Tim, you
this
can go
is really
next.
this is really a struggle for me. Okay. The year is 2020. Kevin Spacey is a world leader who plays dumb while he secretly plots to kill off half of the population, make education undesirable, censor media outlets, and take over the world.
Okay, so you
just put
okay,
Kevin
Tim,
Spacey
your turn.
in there. Okay.
Oh, that was it? All right,
Yeah,
cool.
doesn't have to be long. Here we go.
All right, mine's a little more long-winded. All
All
right.
right, go for it. I like
Julia.
high concept film. I like it.
Julia is a gorgeous 20-something accountant living a very ordinary life until she gets inappropriately groped by her male boss at work. She then reports the situation to HR, who in turn doesn't believe her and fires her. On her tearful, angry walk home from being fired, she's approached by a concerned, homely woman claiming to grant her full revenge so long as she knows she will never find true love. Sharon, still full of rage and seeking vengeance, hastily accepts, and she's given the ability to make a man's penis fall off after she sleeps with him. Sharon has her sights first set on her previous employer and a plethora of other dicks that have wronged her in life. This Valentine's Day, in theaters everywhere, there's going to be a genocide of male genitalia. Julia Roberts is Pretty Woman, Me Too.
Me too.
Come
Pretty
for it.
woman, me too.
Yes, you did.
Get it?
Yes.
I got it.
All
I
right,
was right
I'm
there
next,
with
Brian.
him.
I
I am
love it.
all
Tim,
in.
that's amazing. Okay.
Pretty Woman, Me Too. I love it.
Incredible.
I looked back at your list of movies. I was like, oh, they hated this movie. I should do something about this.
That would be fair.
When Lois dies in a freak car accident and her soul is forced into the body of young Alexei 20 years later, she must
Just
haunt
chances are.
her widower and her best friend so that they don't have sex. She also wants to have sex with her own son.
Yes.
Andy McDowell and Tom Holland star in Second Chances Are.
That's amazing.
RDJ as the widower and Kristen Wiig as the best friend.
So
Yes.
good. So good.
That's fantastic.
Much better cast.
All right, here's my pitch. It's 2020. The world is in disarray, and renowned wine bottle artist Roland Blanc, played by If Looks Could Kill's Richard Grieco, is in a freak glass blowing factory fire. When he awakes 12 months later, he is shocked to see Donald Trump is still president.
See, Brian and I were in this. Brian, as usual, you and I are sharing brain waves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Richard Grieco, because
All right.
the acting alone would be scarier than anything else.
Tim
that
was
could
talking
happen.
about If Looks Could Kill on Pop Battle last week.
Yes.
I'm going to zip myself in. Before I do, and Tim answers 5 questions, I have one question for Tim, which is, Tim, how do you get your teeth so white? They are
I just take good care of them.
they're blindingly white.
I love it. Personal hygiene.
All right.
Plus.
I'm in.
all right.
Still seeing a dentist twice a year.
And there we go. I love it.
Good
5
job,
question
Tim.
time. Here we go.
You want answers? I want the truth.
Makes a man, Mr. Lebowski.
What the fuck is the internet?
I throw this blood on you.
All right, here we go. 5 question time. Tim is answering this week. First up, thumbs up or thumbs down. We see a group friendcation in this film. What is your feeling on those? Are you thumbs up or thumbs down on group vacations?
Well, I've done them plenty of times with just friends, thumbs up. But with the wife, I'm a little weary about that. I've only gone on vacation with just her. But we are going to Hawaii this May for a wedding, and it will be with some other like couples. So we'll see how it goes. As of right now, I'm kind of going thumbs down, but we'll see. Maybe after this experience, it'll be a thumbs up.
You never know. Just don't go to Sweden. Here we go.
Or Florida.
Tim, what's scarier, a cult or a serial killer?
I think through talking about this movie, we discovered that cults aren't maybe as bad as we thought they were. And serial killers, like most recently, I watched Conversations with a Killer, that documentary about Ted Bundy on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
That
Creepy.
will chill you to your core. So serial killers are absolutely way worse.
Yeah.
Cults might be a growth industry in 2020.
Yeah.
It might be a growth. Fill in the blank. The perfect alternative title for this movie would be...
All right, so I have a few. I came up with May Queen.
Yeah.
Summer Thesis.
That sounds like a Mark Harmon the sequel to Summer School.
It's road trip. Yeah.
I love it.
More serious, Grievance, because if there's one word I think to describe Danny, it's grievance. Like I feel like she's been unfairly treated this whole movie.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, I came up with Maya's Mons Pubis Pie.
Ooh.
Wow.
That's a great band name.
Is it?
No.
It's a little long.
No.
It's an emo band.
It's an emo band. All right. Favorite question. This film was produced, like so many other amazing ones that we've talked about a little bit. The Witch, Lighthouse is an A24 film, which Tim absolutely loves. Tim, what's your favorite A24 film?
There's so many. In looking at the list, I realized how many I have not seen. Ex Machina, I think, was the first movie to put A24 on my map. And then since then, I've watched like a ton of their movies, like Moonlight is an A24 film. Most recently, Uncut Gems. I would probably have to say Lady Bird. And I know you guys, like, I think because of listening to how you guys reacted to that movie, and you had like, because your parents, you had this completely different take on pretty much every single relationship and scenario, I think is part of what makes that movie so special. Because I had the opposite opinion, you know, like, and I don't mean that in like an argumentative bad way. Like, I think that's what makes it just so unique, that movie.
Yeah.
You should have an A24 podcast. You'd have to get another co-host because I'm not sure Keenan would be able to watch A24 films.
It's tough to tear him away from like Sharknado.
I don't know. Once he gets his degree, he's going to be like wearing tweed and shoulder. He's going to have elbow pads on.
Well, he's got his realtor, Sean Castle, looking for new homes for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's going to be in a new homeowner somewhere. Finally, deep thoughts question here. Have you ever been so bad in a relationship that you deserve to be stuffed inside a dead bear and set afire?
My entire 20s dating my now wife. Yes.
Ooh, she stayed.
Wow.
Ooh. Do we need to talk to her?
No, but I mean, like,
No.
Are you there?
That's what's also, I think,
Kat, are you there?
So much. She is. She's eating. She's just kind of waving.
Blink if you need help. I have some recipes that might help you.
Blink if you need a dead bear.
Yeah.
We know how to do the intestine part.
I have to say, this film has changed something forever in my relationship. I have always referred to Jim as my bear man.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
I think it's still done. Okay. Nah, it's
no, it feels weird. Feels weird now. Yeah.
But wait. If she didn't decide to put him in the thing, could he just wear the bear thing around the commune?
I would hope so. I thought
how ridiculous did he look, by the way?
Put the other person in the bear. Right?
I thought they were going to try to keep the bear
probably
alive.
They would have put the other guy in the bear.
I thought they were going to like stuff him into it.
I didn't realize
bear.
Yeah.
This watching, I realized they were really mean to Christian when he was in the bear costume in the little thing about to be set on fire. So I wonder if they would have. They were like, "We'll cast you down. You know, you represent all the evil in us." And so I wonder if they would have said that to the other dude as well.
Interesting. We didn't even talk about the fact that they gave the two guys, the two members of their community, they're like from the yew tree, so you feel nothing, and then we get to see the fire take them and the screams.
Yeah, they're full of all full of crap.
So good.
Amazing movie.
Yeah, it's
Tim,
very good.
Where can we find Pop Addle? Though most of our listeners will know, where can we find you, and what do you have coming up?
Keenan takes care of Facebook.com/PopAddled, at PopAddled on Instagram. I do the Twitter feed at PopAddled. You can email us, popaddled@gmail.com. We're on all of the streaming or the places you find your podcast. As of your listening of this, we have probably most recently did Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation.
Yes.
I know you've been hyped for this, Brian. After that, we're going to get together with our buddy Warren at some point soon to do the next 2 movies of the Chucky movies. I think it's
some hard hitting.
I think it's like Cult and Curse.
Hitting.
Cult of Chucky.
Yeah,
Cult of Chucky.
It's like both a serial killer and a cult.
There was a 2019 Child's Play
No,
remake
there
movie.
Was?
Yes, it's on Amazon right now.
How did we miss it? How did we miss that?
Because I didn't know the other ones were made.
Is what's his name still Chucky? Brad Dourif? Is that his name?
How do you
they
know
changed
his
that,
name?
right?
Yeah.
It's Mark Hamill, isn't it now?
I think in the last one it was.
Okay.
Wow.
But so far through Seed, it has been the same voice, which is very iconic.
All right. So make sure you tune in there. We will see the, I don't want to say lesser member?
The other half.
The other half of Pop Addle will be joining us next week as we continue our exploration of the wonderful world of Amazon Prime as we look at the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension.
I'm super pumped you guys are doing that because I've never seen it, so I'm definitely going to watch.
Awesome. I have no idea what this movie is.
I got to get the clip from Keenan of me trolling Keenan about that movie so we can play it on the episode.
Yes, please do get that. Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We love talking
Tim,
about
we love
this.
you.
We love you.
We love you.
We do.
Oh, wait. Do you have an Amazon movie for us? I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mission Impossible 4 and 6, Ghost Protocol, and Fallout are on Amazon. Spaceballs, Knives Out, Dirty Dancing, Rocket Man. There's so many on there that are just The Terminator, the original.
Tim, you can't give us 9 suggestions, Tim. Pick one, Tim.
I'm sorry. I thought this was for the fans.
Well, it could be for the fans. If you had to pick one,
fan
what would
suggestions.
It be? I'm going to say Bumblebee because it's actually really,
that's right.
really
you love
good.
Bumblebee.
I do love Bumblebee. That's a
Katie
really
loves
so
Transformers.
That will be in the Boxo films.
There's a Bumblebee car in our neighborhood.
Yeah, there is.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. We will be back with Buckaroo Banzai next time.
All right. Bye, commenters.
Bye everyone.
Bye.